Good morning. Does everybody hear me okay? I don't want to be too loud. We're in a quiet zone here. Good morning. Good morning. Everybody hear me? I'm just doing a little mic check. Can't be too loud. You gotta be a little quiet. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming. My name is Michelle Mahan. I'm the national rep working with the nurses here at Affinity Medical Center. We're going to try and get started right at exactly at 10 a.m. We are honored to have Representative Sherrod Brown's staff joining us this morning, as well as Representative Dennis Kucinich and candidate for Ohio 7, Ken Harbaugh, and as well as so many nurses, community members. We have a really important message to communicate about this hospital closure. So I just ask again, if everybody could help to please keep the pathway from here, this yellow pathway, up the stairs of the hospital, unencumbered. We need to work together to make sure that people who are coming here to use the hospital can get up and down the stairs without any hindrance. Thank you. Good morning. How's that for volume? I'm going to keep saying this throughout this press conference because it's really important. We need to make sure that while we are here, and thank you all for being here, that the pathway from this parking lot to those stairs remains free and clear so that patients can get in and out without having to navigate all of us, okay? This is just really important. We are here for patient care, so we need to make sure that the patients who come here today, right now, are able to access the hospital without any hindrance. With that, it's just right on at 10 o'clock. I just wanted to get things going right on time. Everybody, again, thank you everybody for being here. My name is Michelle Mahan. I'm a registered nurse for over 20 years, and I am the national representative with National Nurses United, who represents the nurses at Affinity Medical Center. We are, like you all, dismayed by the announcement that Quorum Hospital Corporation made early Friday morning with no warning and no plan. Quorum has left this community in chaos and devastation, and nurses have called this press conference inviting the community and all of the stakeholders to make sure that every voice is heard in this conversation. Also, we are sending a clear message out here to Quorum Hospital Corporation that their conduct is unacceptable to us as a community and to our nurses as healthcare providers for the 43,000 patients they see every year in this emergency department and the 4,800 patients they see and admit in this hospital every year. This hospital can succeed, and we know it. We demand that Quorum Hospital Corporation, if they are unwilling to stay here in this community after all that this community has done to increase their wealth, that they work with city officials, with the nurses here, and every interested stakeholder to ensure that patient care continues without interruption in the city of Massillon at this facility as a full-service hospital for this community and Western Stark County. Our organization, our nurses met early Saturday morning and mobilized immediately. Over 50 nurses came to this emergency nurse meeting where we developed an action plan. And we are here to not only call upon Quorum, but to call upon the community of Massillon to stand with the nurses, to work together as one united force. All legislators, all interested parties, the mayor, senators, community, everybody, to work as one united force. That is the only way we will succeed, if we all move together in the same direction with one plan. Every voice in this conversation is important, and that's what this is about. This is about patient care, and this is about preserving the life-saving care that's needed right here, at this spot at Affinity Medical Center. We have several people who are coming to speak today, and I see several others who have joined us, thankfully. One of them, of course, we will have a representative from Senator Sherrod Brown's staff here, who we've been working with since Friday to explore legal avenues along with our legal staff to make a determination of what recourse there can be to hold this hospital accountable. We are also going to be joined by former Congressman Dennis Kucinich, who knows very well from previous battles about the greed of the hospital industry and their designs to close community hospitals to shutter profit and funnel it to the top. Dennis has successfully saved 2 community hospital closures in Cleveland And he is, of course, a very influential figure in our state who has a lot of resources to help to fight. We are pleased to see the Mayor Perry is here today with us this morning. We are also joined by patients who are expressing their gratitude, as well as the nurses, of course, who work at Affinity Medical Center, providing care day and night to the patients in this hospital and in this community, and have been for so very long. We welcome you all. We thank you for being here, and we are pleased to have this opportunity to amplify your voice and come together as a community. With that, I'd like to begin by introducing registered nurse Roseanne Wilson. Roseanne Wilson has the honor and distinguish the honor of privilege. Thank you. It's been a busy week. Has the honor of being the most senior nurse with the most seniority at Affinity Medical Center, having come from doctors and now here fighting on our registered nurse bargaining team to make sure, as we always have been, that the best care is here, right where we need it, in Massillon. Roseanne?
Hello, everyone, and I want to thank you so much for coming today. Again, my name is Roseanne Wilson. I have been a nurse for 46 years. The first 37 were at Doctors Hospital, and the last 9 have been here at Affinity. I'm sure we all know about the corporate greed, and Quorum and community health systems are among the greediest. Their extreme greed and poor management has led us to where we are today with the announcement on extremely short notice that this community's hospital will be closing. It's important to understand the crucial role our hospital plays in Stark County. While we are slightly less than 10% of the regional beds, we are treating about a fifth of the ER visits in Stark County. This is against the backdrop of a raging opioid addiction epidemic, which has killed 163 people in 2016 and the first half of 2017. Our county has recorded the highest fatality rate in Ohio for 2016. We also play a crucial role in the region's cardiac care. Affinity's own website has to say, and I quote, "During an emergency, the closest medical facility that offers timely cardiac intervention is the best option for heart patients. Affinity is the closest and the best option for thousands of patients. Depriving them of our presence isn't just inconvenient, and it is, it's deadly. As nurses, our first priority is always and forever to our patients and their care. We advocate for our patients on a daily and sometimes even an hourly basis, at the bedside, with the doctors, on the streets, wherever we are needed. Right now, we are needed to lead the fight against closing Affinity Medical Center. Please join us. We're not giving up, and I don't want you to either. Thank you very much.
We have just received word that Dennis Kucinich is here, and he's walking over. So while we're waiting for Dennis, I would like to talk about some of the important things that we're here to talk about, which is patient care. We've handed out here a flyer that describes how exactly the closure of Affinity Medical Center would harm our patients. The impact on emergency care is a big one. In 2016 alone, Affinity reported 43,000 emergency visits, and that is an increase every single year for the past 5 years in emergency department visits. Not to mention that if this hospital closed, we would lose a state-of-the-art $3 million emergency room. Here we have this morning, I'm very grateful for the advocacy of healthcare champion, worker champion, Dennis Kucinich and his wife, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth and I are pleased to join with you this morning on what really is an urgent occasion, not only for Massillon and for Stark and Wayne counties, but for the state of Ohio and for the United States of America. Today in Massillon marks an opportunity for the people to regain their power over health care. Today marks an opportunity to fight back against the corporatization of health care, against for-profit health care, which has become a stain, a moral stain on our country. Today marks an opportunity to stand up and speak out on behalf of so many people who are depending on everyone here to keep this hospital open. Massillon, if I'm right about this, has had a continuous operation of a hospital since 1910. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So this is a fight of the century. This is a battle for the health of a community. This is about patients and doctors and nurses who have come together in an expression of what a community is about. Now, I'm not new to these battles. It was years ago we fought a battle to keep the old St. Michael's open for 3 years, and then Richmond Hospital, which is still open today, and people said, well, there isn't anything you can do about it. I'm here today to explain to you a path that Massillon can use to keep this hospital open. This goes way beyond rhetoric. This goes to a legal strategy that can be pursued to keep the hospital open. Number one, and I'm sure Mayor Catanzaro Perry, who I spoke to on the way down here, Your Honor, thank you. And I look forward to assisting you based on the experience that I've had. And I'm sure you're already, and you may already be doing everything I've talked about, but this is what occurs to me. Number one, the health and safety of the city of Massillon is at stake here. Yes. To me, I don't think there'd be any problem in at least getting a temporary restraining order blocking the Quorum Health Corporation from closing this facility, because health and safety is at risk. You know, your fire department, which brings so many people here to save their lives, their services are at risk. The lives of the patients are at risk. The community tradition of providing health is at risk. I think you would have grounds for at least to block this closure. Number two, and Mayor, this is something that the city of Massillon, as a charter city, has the power to do. I think that the city of Massillon ought to go into court and declare eminent domain and take this building and this operation over, because what? How can this corporation turn around and argue that it has value if they're ready to close it down? They made the move. They made the mistake. So, Mayor, you could get your city council involved, declare eminent domain, take the hospital over, and go into court and say that this corporation, basically is abandoning it, and it has no value to them. You take it over, and then you build the value up with the help of the many doctors and others who are interested in putting together an organization to purchase the hospital. This hospital can be saved. You're standing here. The journey that every one of you has taken to this point, doctors and nurses, in this compact of celebration of the beauty of community, of the health of the community. This is a journey which has not reached its end. It's a journey of a new beginning. And it's a journey of courage. If there's one thing the people in this area know about, it's courage. Because you've stood up again and again to protect the interests of the people in Stark County. These are a tough breed of people here. They're not going to be pushed around by some New York Stock Exchange company that doesn't give a damn about the public interest here, that just wants to keep unloading and spinning off and getting rid of hospital assets everywhere. Well, they may try that in other places around the country, but they're not going to get away with it here. So Your Honor, based on the legal experience that I've had in fighting these battles, I look forward to sitting down with you this morning and helping to chart out this battle. I tell you that this hospital will never close, that this community in Massillon will be able to fight back and demonstrate to the whole United States of America that there marks a spot here in the state of Ohio, here in the city of Massillon, in the county of Stark, where the people fought back and they won, and you will win. God bless you. Go forward. Thank you.
And to have you here. I would like to Next, bring to you Representative from Senator Sherrod Brown's staff, Sarah Lowry, who also is here to show that the senator stands with us. So, Sarah.
Hi everybody. It's been a little while since I've been here. Always in the winter it seems. But it's great to be back and to see all of you. And Senator Brown is just, crushed as all of you are to have learned this news so unexpected and so sudden. And he wishes he could be here in person with you today, but he is in D.C. So he sent me, and it is my honor and privilege to represent Senator Brown in Northeast Ohio, in Stark County, and for the city of Massillon. I spoke with Mayor Cadazaro Perry and her staff shortly after the news broke on Friday, and have been in constant contact since then. And I just wanted to read from you some words from Senator Brown, sharing his thoughts and concerns on the issue here. Dear friends, the news of Quorum Health's sudden announcement regarding the closure of Affinity Medical Center has been the cause of great concern in the greater Massillon area. My office has been in contact with Mayor Cadazaro Perry to work with the City of Massillon and local stakeholders to identify, solicit, and confirm a successor for the critical care currently provided by the hospital prior to ending its operations. As you are aware, Affinity Medical Center is a 156-bed acute care hospital that has been an integral part of the community in Massillon for more than 100 years. Not only has this facility contributed to the health of the surrounding area for the last century, it has contributed meaningfully to the economic health of Stark County, employing more than 800 individuals from the local community, many of whom are standing around us here today. Much like all of you, I am surprised by this abrupt and disruptive nature of this announcement, as well as Quorum's apparent lack of any clear plan to facilitate a smooth transition for its patients and its employees. This timeline gives the local community, including patients and their families, employees, and other local leaders, less than a month to scramble and find alternative sources for both critical care services and employment opportunities. This announcement and lack of contingency planning and cooperation with the local community threatens the health and financial well-being of the residents of Massillon and demonstrates a total disregard for the local community, Affinity's patients, and the hospital's committed workforce. There is no reason Quorum Health cannot take a step back from its aggressive closure strategy and instead take some time to work with local stakeholders on an alternative plan that prioritizes the hospital's patients as well as its dedicated employees. I am hopeful that Quorum Health listens to the community and reaches out to and works with Mayor Cadazaro Perry and collaborates with the local leaders and stakeholders who have dedicated themselves to finding a path forward that works for the local community. My staff and I stand ready to support efforts to ensure a positive outcome for the residents of Massillon who have relied on Affinity Medical Center as a source of trusted care in the community since 1904. So please know that Senator Brown is aware and is working with the leadership here, and we want to do everything we can to save this hospital. So thank you.
Thank you. Yay.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you, Senator Brown. Thank you, everybody, right, for being here. Again, today is about being together, moving together in the same direction as a community, with one voice to talk about the very important resources that are here. For one of the immediate things that comes to mind during this emergency is the valuable emergency care that is provided here at Affinity Medical Center. And I would like to present to you registered nurse at Affinity Medical Center from the emergency department, Leslie Hookey.
Hello. I'm actually speaking on behalf of Amy West, who is also a registered nurse, unable to be here today due to an illness. Amy's been a nurse here for an extremely long amount of time, I believe. On the other hand, I'm fairly new to Affinity. I've only been a nurse for 3 years and have only been in the ER since August. Previous to that, I was 2.5 years in the ICU here. Before my nursing career, I was a paramedic, so I think I have a unique perspective on what it takes to get a patient from a pre-hospital setting to definitive care such as the ICU and that outcome that they desperately need. Having cared for members of the community at their most severely ill and injured, at their most vulnerable, it is beyond shocking to hear that the corporation behind Affinity, Quorum Health, a spinoff of one of the nation's largest for-profit chains, Community Health Systems, is going to close the hospital nearly overnight. As an ER nurse, I know the loss of the critical resource is earth-shattering because for our patients who count on us, including the 43,000 ER patients we see every year, the loss of Affinity means the loss of life. During a severe condition, such as a cardiac arrest, every second counts. Every moment that stands between the patient and the life-saving care is a countdown between full recovery, surviving with disabilities, or not surviving at all. If Affinity closes, the nearest critical care hospital would be at least a 20-minute drive. That drive is too high a risk for patients experiencing heart attacks, strokes, seizures, internal bleeding, severe burns, life-threatening allergic reactions, and any of the other conditions that we see in the ER day after day. And nurses and patients stand here to ask Quorum, why now? Why are we closing this facility? Our community has been suffering from a deadly opioid crisis. This is the worst flu season we've had on record, and now we're closing. It has not escaped our attention that the CEO of Quorum Health received more in total compensation in 2016 than an Affinity Medical Center has lost. The total compensation of the 4 top executives in 2016 would have almost covered the losses of Affinity Medical Center in the last 5 years. And they claim that they must close Affinity's doors because it's not profitable. To that we say patience over profits.
Yes, yes, that's right.
Nurses and patients in this community will not stand by and let this hospital close without a fight. On a personal note, this is my community. I've lived here for 15 years, and Affinity is my front door. I live 6 houses down the street. So this affects, I see this place every day whether I'm working or not. I see it. If Quorum and CHS are unwilling to help Affinity stay open, we demand that they work with elected officials and community to secure another operator. Affinity is a vital resource in this community. It's a lifeline for our patients. Losing this lifeline would be a disaster, and we are here today to say we as a community do not accept a decision to close Affinity.
Thank you, Leslie. I mean, clearly, this hospital is needed here, right? So one of the other reasons this hospital is needed, another perspective, of course, that's very important in this conversation is the perspective of the patients who are served here, the patients whose lives are saved by the care that are provided. And I would like to present to you Mr. and Mrs. Lee, who have a very personal account to tell about why they think this hospital must stay open.
Good morning. I was on October 1st, 2017. My family lives would have changed forever if it wasn't for Affinity Hospital and its quick reaction of their staff. On October 1st, my son was stung by a bee while on a camping trip down in Tucson. As a parent of 4 boys, I didn't think much of it and gave my 8-year-old son some quick pampering and encouraged him to shake it off and go back to playing. Just minutes later, my son returned with welts forming all over his chest. I quickly loaded him into the car and ran him to the nearest stat care. We arrived there at the stat care within 5 minutes or so. As we approached the door, we realized they don't open till 9, and it's 8:30. And my 8-year-old was saying he needs to take off his rubber boots because his feet were swollen. So we quickly loaded him back into the car and headed for the nearest ER. As we drove the short 10-minute drive, my son was coughing, stating how sore his throat had become. At this point, we knew whatever was happening was not normal, and we needed to help fast. As we pulled into the hospital with the hazard lights blinking and flashing, grabbed my son's arms and ran as fast as legs could go. Literally, as soon as we walked into the hospital, there was a nurse, our guardian angel, preparing to call another patient's name. When the nurse saw our son, she knew it was an emergency. She grabbed him and rushed him to treated him with immediate care. We found out our son was having a severe allergic reaction to the bee sting and an anaphylactic shock. It was told to us his airway was closing and there was no time to spare. I know without a doubt our son would have not made it another 20 minutes to drive to another hospital. Affinity and his staff saved our son's life that day. We need a hospital in our community.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much, Mayor of Massillon. Mayor Perry, if you'd like to say a few words to talk about what's going on here and why this fight is important to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to thank Congressman Kucinich and Ken Harbaugh for coming in today, and also Sherrod Brown's staff. We have been working every minute that we can to turn this around. So we heard the news after all of you on Friday around 9:30. I received a phone call. And we were able to pull together a meeting with physicians around 4 o'clock and stakeholders to start working on what are we going to do about Quorum closing our hospital. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the devastation that we all are feeling. The timeline is absolutely ridiculous.
Yes.
Quorum is worrying about their stocks, not about patient care. That's a travesty. Patient care is so important. And why do I say that? Because I'm a nurse as well. And I've worked at Doctors Hospital. I've also worked at this facility at Affinity Medical Center. It's one of the most productive facilities in the area. The physicians are outstanding. The nurses are second to none. I know this because I was a patient here 2 years ago with a strep infection. I had to learn how to walk again. Spent 17 days here, and they did an outstanding job with care and compassion. Not just care, but with compassion. They were outstanding. It is something that we cannot lose in this community. They have thrown our city into chaos and panic.
Yes.
We've had emails of people crying about the care that they've received and that we cannot lose the hospital. We've had phone calls of our elderly residents saying, what are we going to do? We can't lose this facility. I will tell you that if this facility closes, we will lose Massillon residents. People will die. The care that we have here for our open heart program, you can come to this facility and in usually 37 minutes see a doctor in our emergency room. We have the greatest staff in our ER. They respond well. They've been committed and invested in this community for years. This is a seasoned staff in most cases. I know we heard from Stephanie, who's had 3 years here, and we need to have young nurses so that they grow and they want to stay here. Many of these people here I've worked with. So that doesn't say that they come and go. They love it. It is a second family to them. So we need to continue to work hard. I made a call yesterday to Quorum. I asked them to extend the timeline. Their answer was no. We'll talk to you again on Monday. So we have been working. We've met with multiple facilities around our community. Dennis and I are going to meet this morning after this press conference. And we've worked with Kirk Shearing, Thomas West, Scott Olslager, Sherrod Brown, Rob Portman, Jim Renacci. Everyone here they've signed on to letters or written their own personal letters to Quorum. This is a devastation for this community, and we're not going to sit by and take it. We're all going to band together, work together, and save our hospital. Yay. So whatever you can do, write letters to Quorum, make phone calls, whatever you can think of to do, now's the time to do it. Don't sit back. So I am with you, ladies. I know that you've worked very hard, and I promise you that I will not leave one stone unturned to save our hospital. Thank you.
Introduce to you Ken Harbaugh, who is also an invested community member here, who is running for Ohio 7 in Congress. And every voice of advocacy is really important right now, and so we are so happy to see the nonpartisan, the collective unity, that the recognition that this is absolutely about one thing and one thing only, patient care. And so thank you, Ken, for being here.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Mayor, and Dennis, and all of you for coming out. If they shut this facility, if they shut our Affinity, it's going to be the first time in over a century that this community is without a hospital. We are turning back the clock if we allow this to happen. We are taking a giant leap backwards. 1910 was the last time this community was without a hospital. A hospital is the beating heart of a town like this. We cannot let them rip it out. And make no mistake, this isn't just about economics. There certainly is an economic message that they're sending, but this is about politics. You think it's an accident that this is the one they choose, the hospital with a strong nurses union, with a strong organization protecting patient care? That's not an accident. This is another shot in that salvo that we're seeing against Ohio families, against families across the country, and we're not going to put up with it. There isn't a person here today, there isn't an Ohioan in this state or an American in this country who does not owe nurses a debt of gratitude.
Yes.
I say that not just as a registered EMT, a fellow traveler, but as a parent, as a father of a little girl who needed 4 surgeries before she turned 4 years old. And the doctors worked their miracles in the OR, but it was the nurses. It was the nurses who stood by my side and my daughter's side through those long nights, those long, terrifying nights, and stood watch over our family. I say that as a Navy man. Standing watch is something sacred to us. You know what that means. You nurses, you're the ones who stood watch for us. We're going to stand here for you. We're not going to let this go down without a fight. I am honored to be standing among all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. And we are happy and thankful that the community is here to stand watch along and beside nurses as we stand watch over the patients and the much needed care in this community. I would like to introduce to you registered nurse Stephanie Still. Stephanie is a resident of this community as well, like many of the nurses here. Stephanie is here to read to you a story on behalf of a patient. You may have seen that we have been collecting the nurses. One of their first action plans was to collect the stories of their patients to demonstrate very clearly from the patient's own words why this hospital must stay open. We received an important story that really was important to this mother that it be read here today. She is at work, and so we promised her that we would convey her message, and to do that today is Stephanie.
Thank you. My name is Lori Babetsky, and I'm a resident of Massillon, Ohio. I live 3 blocks from Affinity Medical Center. I was born at the hospital in 1974 and switched insurance companies to be able to give birth to my son there in 2011. We use Affinity for all of our medical needs, including surgeries and ER visits. I had the absolute best care for all of my surgeries. The staff there is nothing short of amazing. I had to go to the ER in 2008 while having a miscarriage. The nurses were so kind and amazing while I was dealing with this incredible loss. I tried for 10 years to have a baby before this miscarriage. When my son was born, the nurses and hospital staff were beyond amazing. The nurses came in and gave me back rubs and treated me like a queen, making sure to do what they could do to make me as comfortable as possible after 27 hours of labor. My son was born with a very rare chromosome disorder. As such, he requires physical, occupation, and speech therapies, which he had at Affinity until he started school. My son also has a seizure disorder. He had his first seizure 5 years ago. We did not know what was happening at the time as he worked up and started seizing and stopped breathing. Luckily, we lived 3 minutes at most from the Affinity Hospital. I got him into the vehicle and took him directly to the ER. They immediately rushed him in and began his care. This was not something I had ever had to deal with before, and the hospital staff went above and beyond the call of duty. I didn't know what was happening, and the nurses took care of my son and also explained to me everything. When it was all over, I watched a young nurse actually get emotional from the extreme scene we had just witnessed. This shows the absolute compassion of the staff at Affinity. Since then, my son had 3 more major seizures in which he stopped breathing, and each time he received life-saving care from the hospital staff at Affinity. We had previously thought about moving, but once my son started with the seizures, we knew we would never find a nice home in a nice neighborhood that was close enough to a hospital for my son. We stay in our home for the reason that the hospital is so close that we do not have to wait for an ambulance and can take him directly in for life-saving care. With the closing of Affinity Medical Center, we will now have to call an ambulance that could take 6 to 10 minutes to reach our home, and then another 20 minutes to drive to the nearest medical facility. Imagine your child not breathing and having to wait for an ambulance to get there. Very scary thought. We have been online since the announcement trying to figure out which medical facility is the closest and what route to take my son to the life-saving care that he needs. I can't get to the last page. Oh, yeah, my fingers are cold. Should these seizures occur after Affinity closes, and the thought has us full of anxiety. Please know we are not the only story out there. The city of Massillon needs this facility to stay open for the life-saving care of our community. Sincerely, Lori Babetsky.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for presenting that story on behalf of Lori, who couldn't be here today, although clearly is committed to fight with this community, with nurses, to keep this hospital open. I'd like to present to you Debbie McKinney. Deb is been a nurse leader here on behalf of nurses, has been a very staunch advocate for patient safety, working very hard and enduring long hours of sitting down with Quorum Hospital Corporation as we have talked to them over the many years to ensure that Massillon Community Hospital receives the best nursing care. And so Debbie is one of the people who has been sitting down with this hospital corporation that we know very well to be greedy and lawless, like you all are seeing now in a very real and impactful way. So Debbie.
Good morning, and thank you for coming and supporting. I just wanted to provide some ways that you, as the community, other nurses, can get involved in helping to save our hospital. I know that several other people have mentioned the writing letters to Quorum, writing letters to other state representatives, and that's also great. But we have set up a text site that you can text Affinity to 69866, and you will be able to show your support, and you will be able to receive information as it becomes available to us. You can also visit www.saveaffinity.org and sign a petition, or you can contact 1-800-440-6877 or Save Affinity at nationalnursesunited.org and tell your story so that we can also continue to share everybody's story and make this known that this hospital needs to stay open, and there's no way that we can go on without it.
Thank you. And finally, as we are about to wrap up here today in what was a very strong show of support, as a representative with National Nurses United, the nation's largest organization of nurses, we immediately put into place an action plan with all of our resources. Our entire legal division, who is very accustomed, along with our collective bargaining divisions, our research divisions, our communications departments, all of the resources that are available to the nurses across this country have been focused and targeted right now on Affinity Medical Center. In less than 8 hours, that petition was live and ready to go, and nurses were able to begin to mobilize and to get the stories and to let people in the community to be informed. Our organization, this is not our first fight to keep a hospital open. We do this every single day. This is an unfortunate trend in this country that community hospitals like Massillon, like Affinity Medical Center here in Massillon, are being shuttered. They're being shuttered to funnel all the profits to the top. There has been a heist here, folks. Community health systems put this hospital spin-off Quorum Hospital Corporation together and designed it to fail. Nurses have been working to hold this corporation accountable, and you have all of the resources of our organization and the support of over 185,000 registered nurses in this nation, many of which who are battling, as you are, to keep services in their communities, and who have also won and kept services open in their communities. So we want to say to you, on behalf of all of the nurses across this nation, and National Nurses Organizing Committee here in Ohio, and National Nurses United across the nation, that the nurses across this country and all of the people and experts that they have put in place are here to stand with you. Our next step is to continue this conversation in a community forum, a town hall, where we bring everybody together to talk more deeply and intimately and thoroughly about the things that we can do and about the impact of this hospital closure, as well as to continue to put pressure on Quorum Hospital Corporation to either keep this hospital open, slow down the timeline, or work to continue to keep necessary services in this hospital. You may take a look, you can clearly see that this hospital is needed, as evidenced by all of the statements here today, and what we know is this: when nurses fight, we win. When people fight, we win. This hospital corporation is expecting everybody just to sit back and give up. They were expecting that everybody would be in a panic. We have moved beyond panic, and we are now into control. So thank you, everybody. Thank you. We are proud to stand with you as our nurses across the nation and across the state of Ohio, and we are proud to focus here right now on keeping Affinity open.